What happens when the truth about your past is exposed and you finally stop pretending to be the family's forgotten child? Clara's life seemed perfect on the outside: a senior position, a luxury apartment, independence from her family. But everything changed when her grandmother called with news about her parents' housewarming party. After years of silence, Clara learned the real reason her parents never wanted her around. She wasn't their choice. Stay tuned to see how Clara confronts her past, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories. My name is Clara. At 29, I had built the life I always dreamed of: climbing to a senior position at Morgan & Reed Investments, living in a luxury apartment in downtown Boston, and most importantly, gaining complete independence from my so-called family. "Clara, sweetie," my grandmother's familiar voice came through the phone, warm and comforting. "I just wanted to let you know your parents and Lily moved into their new house." She paused, the hesitation evident in her voice. "They're planning a housewarming party in 3 weeks." A smirk tugged at my lips. "Are you and Grandpa going?" "No, dear. We're not feeling well enough for all that noise and commotion," she sighed. I could almost picture her sitting in her favorite armchair, probably knitting another scarf for the winter. "Your grandfather's arthritis is acting up again." "Take care of yourselves," I said, genuine concern filling my voice. My grandparents were the only family I still cared about. "I'll visit you both soon." "That would be lovely, dear. We miss you." Another pause, and then, almost tentatively, she added, "Clara, I know things are complicated, but maybe—" "Grandma," I interrupted gently, "we both know they won't invite me, and that's fine." After hanging up, I walked over to my floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the city skyline. My reflection looked back at me, a woman in a tailored suit, confident and powerful, far from the unwanted child I once was. The irony didn't escape me. My parents' new house was probably modest compared to my sleek apartment, but they would never know that. I'd made sure to keep my success private, staying off social media for years. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Brianna, my best friend from college. "Don't you dare back out of your birthday party tomorrow," she said, no pleasantries. "I've already ordered the cake and convinced half the office to come." I chuckled. In my own apartment? That would be quite the feat. "Seriously, Clara, you need to celebrate. 30 is approaching and you're crushing it at life. Let's show it off a little. Take some photos, post them online, and show the world that Clara Mitchell is living her best life." I hesitated. For years, I'd kept my life private, deliberately disconnected from my past, but maybe Brianna was right. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. "Fine," I finally agreed, "but nothing too crazy." "Too late!" she practically screamed. "I've already hired a photographer." The photographer Brianna hired was worth every penny. My apartment looked like something out of an architectural magazine. Marble countertops gleaming, city lights twinkling through the windows, and everyone looking effortlessly glamorous and happy. After years of social media silence, I finally posted the pictures. "Look at you, girl!" Brianna exclaimed, scrolling through the comments. "Your post is blowing up." I glanced at my phone. The likes and comments were flooding in. Former classmates, colleagues, and even distant relatives were all amazed by my apparent success. It felt surreal, like I was shedding the mask I'd worn for so many years, finally revealing the woman I had become. The next morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Clara, it's Mom. I got your number from your grandmother." My stomach clenched. Eleanor Mitchell's voice, artificially cheerful, brought back a flood of unwanted memories. "I saw your photos online. Your apartment is impressive. We had no idea you were doing so well." "Of course you didn't," I thought. "You never bothered to ask." "We're having that housewarming party next weekend," she pressed on. "We'd love for you to come. Everyone would be so happy to see you." I bet they would, now that I'm successful. "I'll think about it," I replied coldly, then hung up. Sitting on my couch, staring at the city below, memories started flooding back. Memories I tried so hard to suppress. I wasn't supposed to exist. My mother was 22, fresh out of college when she got pregnant. She and Dad had big plans, traveling, building careers, enjoying their youth. A baby wasn't part of that picture. "Mrs. Mitchell," I could almost hear the doctor's voice from the story my grandmother once told me. An abortion could compromise your ability to have children in the future. So they kept me, not out of love or desire, but out of fear of future regret. As soon as I was born, they started leaving me with my grandparents, first for weekends, then for weeks at a time. My earliest memories weren't of my parents' house, but of my grandparents' cozy home, the smell of Grandma's cookies, the sound of Grandpa's laugh, the feeling of being genuinely wanted. They gave me what my parents couldn't or wouldn't. Everything changed when I turned 6. My grandparents finally put their foot down. "She needs to go to school," Grandma told my parents firmly. "She needs stability, her own home. You can't keep passing her around like this." "But she's happy here," my mother protested weakly. "She meets her parents weekly." Grandpa's voice was unusually stern. "It's time you step up and take responsibility." By then, my parents had established their careers and bought a house. They reluctantly agreed to take me back, but I later learned they had other plans brewing. They wanted another child, a planned one this time. I was 7 when Mom announced her pregnancy. I remember her glowing face, Dad's proud smile, the way they decorated the nursery months in advance, everything I never got. Lily was born on a bright spring morning. From the moment they brought her home, the contrast in how they treated us was stark. While I ate breakfast alone before school, Mom would spoon-feed Lily with airplane noises. When I got straight A's on my report card, Dad barely glanced at it before returning to helping Lily with her finger painting. "Mom, I got the lead role in the school play," I announced one evening. "That's nice, honey," she responded absently, not looking up from recording Lily's first steps on her phone. I stopped telling them about my achievements after a while. Instead, I'd ride my bike to my grandparents' house after school, where someone actually cared. "Show me that report card again," Grandpa would say, his face lighting up with pride. "My brilliant girl." They remembered every birthday, every school event. When I won the science fair in 5th grade, they were the only ones in the audience. My parents had taken Lily to her dance recital instead. "We'll have cake when we get back," Mom had promised that morning, but they didn't return until late. Lily was tired from dancing, so they postponed my birthday celebration. It never happened. The pattern continued year after year. They forgot my piano recital, where I played the opening solo. They missed my middle school graduation, claiming Lily had a cold. When I won a state-level math competition, they were at Lily's soccer practice. Meanwhile, Lily's life was meticulously documented. Every lost tooth warranted a family celebration. Her first bike ride was photographed from every angle. When she made the junior cheerleading squad, our room was decorated with balloons for a week. I found solace in my studies and my grandparents' unconditional love. Every weekend, I'd escape to their house, where Grandma would listen to my stories and Grandpa would help me with my homework. "You're going to do great things, Clara," Grandma would say, slipping me a new book or a small trinket. "Just you wait and see." But at home, I was invisible unless Lily needed something. Then, I became the ill-paid babysitter, the tutor, the convenient older sister who could drive her to friends' houses. Lily grew more insufferable with each passing year. By the time she was 9, she had become a master manipulator, knowing exactly how to twist our parents around her finger. "You're just the mistake they got stuck with," she'd taunt me. "Nobody wants you here." I usually ignored her jabs, but one day, when I was 17, she crossed the line. I was studying for my AP exams when she barged into my room. "Move your stuff. I need your desk for my art project," she demanded. "I'm studying, Lily. Use your own desk." "No, I want this one. Mom and Dad said I could have whatever I want in this house." "That's not true, and I'm busy." She started throwing my textbooks on the floor. "You're so selfish. You're just jealous because Mom and Dad love me more." Something snapped inside me. Years of pent-up frustration and anger finally erupted. I grabbed her phone out of her hand. "Give it back!" she shrieked. "No!" I said, voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "You're grounded. Go to your room and think about how you treat people." She stomped off, screaming threats about telling our parents. I didn't care. Someone had to teach her about consequences. When Mom and Dad came home, Lily put on her performance. Crocodile tears streamed down her face as she spun her tale, twisting everything I'd said and done. I could hear the words she would use, the way she would make herself the victim, as always. But this time, I didn't care. This time, I wasn't going to back down. "She hit me," Lily sobbed, "and she took my phone and locked me in my room." "I never hit her," I said calmly. "I took her phone because she was being disrespectful and destroying my study materials." Mom's face turned red with anger. "How dare you touch your sister?" "Give me your phone," Dad demanded. "You're grounded for a month, no going out except for school." "I have the class trip this weekend." "Canceled," Mom snapped. "Maybe this will teach you to be kinder to your sister." For the next month, they acted like I didn't exist. They'd walk past me in hallways without acknowledgement. At dinner, they'd talk around me as if I were invisible. Lily smirked throughout it all, knowing she'd won. That was the moment I truly understood. These people weren't my family. They were just strangers who happened to share my DNA. When graduation day came, I wasn't surprised to find only my grandparents in the audience. Mom had told them I wasn't worthy of their presence. My valedictorian speech earned a standing ovation, but the 2 empty seats in the family section spoke volumes. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart," Grandma said afterward, hugging me tight. "Where are your parents?" asked Mrs. Thompson, my favorite teacher. I just shrugged. By then, their absence had become the most natural thing in the world. The day after graduation, Mom and Dad called me into the living room. I knew from their expressions that this wasn't going to be a pleasant conversation. "You're 18 now," Dad started, his voice businesslike. "An adult. It's time for you to move out." Mom added bluntly, not even trying to soften the blow. I discreetly pressed record on my phone, sliding it partially under my thigh on the couch. Something told me I needed to document this moment. "What about college?" I asked, though I already knew their answer. I just wanted it on record. They actually laughed, a harsh, cruel sound that echoed through the room. "We're not paying for your education," Dad said. "That money is for Lily's future." Finally, Mom sighed, dropping all pretense, running her fingers through her hair with visible relief. "We can stop being responsible for you." "Let's be honest," Dad continued, his voice cold as ice. "We never wanted you to be born. Your mother couldn't get an abortion because of medical risks, so we were stuck with you." "You were never part of this family," Mom added, examining her manicured nails as if discussing the weather. "Not really, and now it's time for you to go." I sat there, letting my phone capture every word, every cruel laugh, every moment of truth I'd always known, but they'd never admitted so openly. My hands were steady in my lap, years of practice keeping my emotions hidden. "I'll leave tomorrow," I said quietly, proud that my voice didn't waver. Their relief was palpable, like a weight lifting from their shoulders. "Good," Dad nodded. "No drama. At least you're making this easy." From upstairs, Lily's voice carried down the hallway, excited and shrill. "I'm going to turn her room into a gaming paradise, a huge TV, new console, maybe even a streaming setup. It's going to be amazing." I packed that night, listening to Lily's excited planning through the wall. 18 years of life fit into 2 suitcases and a backpack. The next morning, I took a taxi to my grandparents' house. When I told them everything, showing them the recording, Grandma burst into tears, her hands shaking as she held mine. "Those aren't the people we raised," Grandpa said, his voice breaking, years of disappointment evident in his eyes. I showed them something else, too. My acceptance letter to Harrison Business School's investment program, full scholarship, including housing. My hands trembled slightly as I handed them the envelope, but this time with pride. "They wanted me so badly they're even paying for my dorm room," I explained, allowing myself a small smile. My trades and recommendations impressed them. The dean personally called to offer me the scholarship. Grandma hugged me tight, her familiar lavender scent wrapping around me like a comfort blanket. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart, so very proud." "Please don't tell them," I asked, pulling back to look at both of them. "They don't deserve to know." "They don't," Grandpa agreed bitterly, his weathered hand squeezing my shoulder. "Your success will be yours alone." That night, in the dim light of my old childhood bedroom at my grandparents' house, I finally let myself break. For years, I had buried it all, everything from the past, but tonight, I let the tears fall. The weight of it all, the years of pretending I was fine, crashed over me. That fall, I left for Harrison Business School with nothing but 2 suitcases and an unshakable determination. My new life began in a tiny dorm room overlooking the campus quad, but for the first time, it felt more like home than my parents' house ever had. I threw myself into my studies with an intensity that even surprised me. Investment analysis came naturally. The numbers spoke clearly, telling stories with the precision I had never found in the mess of emotions I left behind. The patterns, the predictions, the careful balance of risk and reward, it all clicked. I felt in control, in a way I never had before. Between classes, I secured prestigious internships. Goldman Sachs in my sophomore year, Morgan & Reed in my junior year. Each success was another notch on the belt of my self-made future, far away from the mess I had left behind. "Clara, you're exactly what we look for in future analysts," my supervisor at Morgan & Reed said during my evaluation. "Your attention to detail is remarkable, and your market insights are beyond your years." At that moment, I didn't just feel validated, I felt seen. But I didn't let myself feel too much. I had learned how to bury emotions and focus on results. My personal life remained quiet. When Grandma called weekly, she sometimes started with, "Your sister," or "your parents." "Please, Grandma," I'd gently interrupt. "I don't want to know." She'd sigh and then shift the conversation to her garden or Grandpa's bowling league. They were my only connection to the past, and even with them, I kept certain doors firmly shut. Each week, our conversations danced around everything and nothing. Recipes she was trying, books I was reading, the changing seasons, carefully sidestepping the family-shaped void between us. After graduation, Morgan & Reed offered me a full-time position immediately. I started as a junior analyst, but it wasn't long before my insights into market trends caught management's attention. I worked late into the night, taking on extra projects and volunteering for the toughest cases that others avoided. "Mitchell, the Thompson portfolio numbers are impressive," my boss remarked during my first year. "Keep this up and you'll go far. We haven't seen analysis this thorough from a junior analyst in years." His praise only fueled me further. Each year brought more responsibility, and with it, raises. I moved from a cramped studio to a 1-bedroom apartment, and then to a spacious 2-bedroom in a better neighborhood. Each move was a step further away from the life I had left behind. By the time I turned 28, I was managing my own team and overseeing major client portfolios. My coworkers joked that I lived and breathed investments, but the truth was, work was the only thing that filled the void where family should have been. Every success felt like a small act of rebellion. Every promotion was proof that I was finally worth something, that I wasn't invisible anymore. The day I closed on my luxury apartment downtown, I stood alone in the empty space, watching the sunset paint the city gold through the floor-to-ceiling windows. 5 years of 60-hour weeks, careful saving, and strategic investments had led me here. The marble countertops, the hardwood floors, the breathtaking view. I had built this life entirely on my own, with no help from the people who were supposed to support me. And then, my phone buzzed. My mother had sent a text about a housewarming party. After 11 years of silence, they wanted to see me? Fine. I'd let them see exactly what they had thrown away. The recording from that last day, the one I had kept on my phone, transferred through every upgrade and every phone change, was still there, waiting, ready for the right moment. I typed a quick response. "I'll be there." My mother's reply came instantly. "Wonderful! Can't wait to see you, sweetheart." I took a day off work and drove to my parents' new house. It was a modest 2-story in a middle-class neighborhood, nice, but nothing compared to my downtown apartment. Several cars already lined the driveway when I arrived, and I could hear laughter drifting through open windows. My hand hesitated on the car door handle. 11 years. I took a deep breath, grabbed my housewarming gift, an expensive bottle of wine I knew they couldn't afford, and walked up the path. Aunt Marie spotted me first. "Clara! Oh my goodness, it's been forever!" She wrapped me in a perfume-heavy hug. "Where have you been hiding?" Other relatives crowded around, a chorus of excited greetings and questions. "How's the big city? We saw your apartment online. Why don't you visit anymore? You look so successful." I smiled politely, offering non-committal shrugs. Let them wonder. From the corner of my eye, I noticed my cousins whispering, comparing my designer outfit to the more modest attire around us. Then my parents appeared in the doorway. Mom's hair had more gray than I remembered. Dad's middle had thickened. Behind them stood Lily, her face a careful mask. The years had changed us all. "Clara!" Mom rushed forward, arms outstretched, her voice syrupy sweet. "My baby girl!" Dad joined the embrace. "We've missed you so much. We're so proud of everything you've achieved." Their performance was flawless. If I hadn't lived through the reality, I might have believed it myself the way Mom's hands clutched my shoulders, how Dad's voice cracked with emotion. They'd had years to perfect this act. The party moved inside. Wine flowed, food circulated, and relatives caught up on years of missed moments. I noticed how my parents kept touching my arm, laughing too loudly at my comments, making sure everyone saw their devotion to their long-lost daughter. The modest living room was cramped with family members, all stealing glances at me between bites of cheese and crackers. Uncle George stood up during dinner, wine glass in hand, his face slightly flushed from the alcohol. A toast to Eleanor and Richard on their beautiful new home. Cheers erupted around the table. "And Clara," he continued, his tone shifting, his eyes narrowing. "I have something to say to you, young lady." The room went still. Forks froze mid-bite. A glass clinked nervously against a plate. "How dare you abandon your family like this?" His voice rose with indignation. "Getting rich and successful while refusing to even call your poor parents. They've been heartbroken, wondering what they did wrong, crying over their ungrateful daughter." My stomach twisted as I glanced at my parents' faces' perfectly crafted concern, manufactured hurt. Mom even managed to squeeze out a tear. "The true saint for forgiving me," Uncle George continued, his voice growing louder with righteous fury. "After everything they did for you, all their sacrifices, how could you treat them this way?" I looked around the table at my relatives' disapproving faces. My parents had spent 11 years spinning their story, painting themselves as the victims of their ungrateful daughter who had abandoned them for wealth and success. I cleared my throat, the weight of years of silence pressing down on me. "Mom, would you like to tell everyone the truth?" She straightened in her chair, radiating the confidence of a practiced performance. "Actually, yes. Living with Clara was always difficult. She was spoiled, arrogant, ungrateful for everything we gave her." She glanced around the table, locking eyes with each relative. "She ran away after high school, abandoned us, never looked back. No calls, no visits. We were devastated." Relatives shook their heads sympathetically, wine glasses tilting slightly. Lily dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, the same fake tears she had perfected as a child. "Let me share something," I said, pulling out my phone. "A recording from the day I left. I was 18. Mom's face went pale. Dad's grip on his fork tightened. The room fell completely silent as my teenage voice filled the space. "What about college?" Then came my parents' cruel, mocking laugh. "We're not paying for your education. That money is for Lily's future." My dad's cold voice followed. "We never wanted you to be born. Your mother couldn't get an abortion because of medical risks, so we were stuck with you. You were never part of this family." The recording hit like hammer blows in the suffocating silence. Aunt Marie's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide in shock. Cousin Rachel's eyes welled with tears. Uncle George's face darkened with each revelation. I stopped the recording. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the soft tick of the wall clock. "This is why I left," I said quietly. "Ask Grandma and Grandpa. They took me in that day. They were there when you kicked me out." I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor, every eye on me. "You only invited me today because you saw my success online. Before that, 11 years of silence. Not a single call, not a birthday card, nothing." Uncle George's face had drained of color. His righteous anger evaporated, leaving only shame. "Eleanor, Richard, how could you?" Guests began pushing back their chairs, the scraping sounds filling the room like a discordant symphony. Aunt Marie couldn't even look at my parents. "You monsters," she whispered, gathering her purse with trembling hands. "Clara, I'm so sorry," Uncle George said, heading for the door. "I didn't know. I should have asked." Others followed, murmuring about cruel lies and disgraceful behavior. The house emptied quickly, the door opening and closing with the finality of their hasty exits. My parents and Lily stayed at the table, their faces contorted in rage. The perfect family facade had finally cracked. "You ruined everything!" Mom shrieked, mascara running down her face. "How dare you!" "We took you in!" Dad shouted, as if he had forgotten the recording we had all just heard. "You wanted me here," I replied calmly, smoothing my dress. "I just played your game. The only difference is I brought receipts." I walked out of their house for the last time, the sound of Lily's angry sobs following me down the path. Through my grandmother, I later learned that most of our relatives had cut ties with my parents. The truth had cost them more than just their reputation. Today, I have friends who chose me, colleagues who respect me, and the peace that comes with finally exposing a lie. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply living well on your own terms. What do you do when the people who should love you the most betray you, twist the truth, and manipulate the story to fit their narrative? Clara spent years hiding from her past, building a life far removed from the family who never truly cared about her. She gave them everything: her support, her money, her time, hoping one day they would see her for who she was. But when her success finally shone through, they came crawling back. Not because they wanted her, but because they saw her as a symbol of something they could exploit. When Clara showed up at their housewarming party, it wasn't about reconciliation, it was about making sure the truth came to light. And when she played the recording of her parents' cruel words, their mask of loving parents fell apart. For once, Clara wasn't the invisible one. The truth was now undeniable. Clara made the right choice. She walked away from the family who never truly saw her, and her life is better for it. She's found peace in her own success, surrounded by people who respect and value her. So, what would you do if you were in Clara's shoes? Would you have confronted the lies or kept walking away? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you found this story powerful, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories that expose the truth.
"Worthless," Aunt Clara muttered under her breath as she strode past me, not even attempting to lower her voice. I glanced up from my sketchbook just in time to see the disdain written across her face before she turned away. I looked down again quickly, gripping my pencil tighter while trying to ignore the knot forming in my stomach. I sat tucked away in the back corner of my aunt and uncle's overcrowded living room, sketching quietly during our family's monthly gathering. All around me, chatter and laughter echoed off the walls as my relatives socialized, doused in a healthy glow of wine. I did my best to make myself small and unnoticed. It wasn't difficult. I'd had 15 years of practice. "Did you see Theo's last game, though?" My mom's voice rang out loudly from the kitchen. 2 touchdowns. They won by a landslide. A chorus of cheers and congratulations erupted in response. I snuck a glance across the room at my cousin holding court over a captive audience, grinning from ear to ear. His Letterman jacket hung proudly over the back of his chair, trophy glinting under the lights. I looked back at my sketchbook just as Aunt Clara walked by again. She stopped short this time, narrowing her eyes as she spotted my work. "Still scribbling away as usual, I see," she noted in a tone that landed somewhere between curiosity and disgust. "Don't you have homework to be doing or something?" I pressed my lips together, staring intently at my paper. "I finished it already." Well, I suppose it's harmless enough," she dismissed with a wave of her ring-laden hand before walking away. The knot in my stomach twisted tighter. Her words echoed in my ears. Worthless, harmless. I knew she thought both about me and my art. Somewhere deep down, I feared the worst part was she could be right. I jumped as a gentle hand grasped my shoulder. I looked up to see Uncle Max's kind eyes peering down at me through his thick glasses. "Don't listen to her, Lila," he said softly. "I think what you create is lovely." I managed a small smile in return, comforted more by the solidarity of his gaze than the compliment itself. Uncle Max was the only one who ever bothered to look closely at my drawings. He seemed to understand the pangs of being overlooked amid the symphony of other people's noise. As he gave my shoulder a supportive squeeze before walking away, I realized this monthly gathering marked the third in a row he had offered me those same gentle words. Don't listen to her. His reassuring gestures were becoming something of a ritual, I mused. One I appreciated more deeply each time. The lively hum of the party clambered on around me, but I felt cocooned by Uncle Max's kindness. I allowed myself to become reabsorbed by the strokes of my pencil, applying darker depth and definition to the portrait emerging on my page. I didn't hear Aunt Claire approach until her shadow was upon me. I swear, Lila, it's like you live in your own little world sometimes, she scoffed, craning her neck to catch a glimpse of my work. What are you making that's got you so tuned out anyway? Before I could respond, she snatched the sketchbook from my lap, already laughing. Oh, honey, when are you going to grow up? She cried loudly, her shrill voice cutting through the din. You can't pay the bills with silly little doodles like this. Faces turned in our direction as heat flooded my cheeks. I stared hard at the floor, willing myself not to cry as a few stray snickers arose. Aunt Clara carelessly dropped my sketchbook back in my lap and strode away, gravelly laugh still spilling from her lips. Why put in so much effort for something so worthless? She called over her shoulder. The words pierced my fragile pride, every letter another knife twist to my heart. I hugged my sketchbook tightly to my chest, barely holding back tears. Maybe she was right after all. Pass the potatoes, please, Aunt Clara demanded, her shrill voice cutting through the chatter around the dinner table as she leaned back in her seat. I quietly handed her the platter, avoiding eye contact and hoping to avoid provoking another of her cutting remarks. It was Thanksgiving, after all. The one day of the year our family insisted on coming together despite the simmering tensions. My hope of getting through dinner unscathed was short-lived. As usual, the conversation quickly turned to comparing my lackluster achievements to Theo's latest accolades. Theo made varsity quarterback as a sophomore. Uncle Ralph boasted loudly between bites of turkey and stuffing. Youngest one in years. He's the real deal. A round of hearty congratulations followed as Theo grinned, basking in the glow of adoration and free-flowing wine. I told you he'd be the star of the family, Aunt Clara joined in gleefully. Brains and talent, he has it all, not to mention that beautiful girlfriend of his. She let out an exaggerated sigh. My, they will have the cutest baby someday. Can't you just picture it? More laughter and smiles of agreement rippled around the long table. I sank lower in my chair and pushed a few peas around my plate, face burning. His life did seem pretty perfect, I admitted resentfully to myself. Quarterback, straight A's, leggy blonde doting on his every word. With a dejected exhale, I let my eyes wander around the room, carefully avoiding the golden boy himself. As an involuntary reflex, my gaze landed on my sketchbook, peeking out from my bag in the corner behind Uncle Max's wingback chair. Just like its owner, tucked away, forgotten, worthless. At that moment, Aunt Clara's grating voice cut through my gloom. It's such a shame not all young people live up to their potential. My eyes snapped to hers at the other end of the table. Her expression feigned sympathy, but I saw the malice flashing behind it. Poor Lila just drifts through life. I don't know how she'll ever amount to anything meaningful without some sparks flying up in that head of hers. Cold dread crept down my spine at the thinly veiled insult. Before I could open my mouth to respond, I felt a large hand firmly grasp my knee under the table. Uncle Max subtly shook his head, silently warning me not to engage. I bristled in frustration but held my tongue. Max gave my leg a supportive squeeze before removing his hand. Well, what about David? Aunt Edna chimed in nervously, attempting to reroute the conversation down safer terrain. How's that mathematics doctorate coming along? As the attention shifted, I quietly excused myself from the table. I strode swiftly to the corner and snatched up my sketchbook, fleeing to the dark solitude of the back porch. The cold night air bit at my wet cheeks, but I paid it no mind. I sank down on the porch steps, angrily swiping away tears. How dare she? I fumed, hands clenching and unclenching. Who is she to assume she knows my potential? After several shuddering breaths, my rage began to morph into despair. What if Aunt Clara was right? Maybe I would never amount to anything. I gazed forlornly down at my latest sketch, a portrait of Aunt Edna. The intricate details in her kind, wrinkled face had taken me hours to perfect. But what was the point if no one cared? It was worthless, just like me. A warm weight settled around my slumped shoulders, Uncle Max's wool coat. He eased down next to me with a soft groan, eyeglasses glinting in the moonlight. We sat without a word for several moments, my uneven breath sounding loud in the stillness. Finally, Max broke the heavy silence. "Don't listen to her poison, Lila," he urged gently. "She's just threatened by what she can't understand." He tucked a stray lock of hair behind my ear. "But I understand, and I believe your art means something, just like you do." Tears spilled down my face once more, but this time they were tears of gratitude. I slipped quietly out the back door into the crisp night air, carefully closing it behind me before the sounds of the boisterous family gathering could follow me outside. I shrugged my jacket tighter around my shoulders against the chill. Autumn leaves crunched under my shoes as I made my way across the wide back porch and settled onto the wooden steps. Uncle Max and I had taken to meeting here, outside the stuffy, chaotic warmth of my aunt and uncle's home, where the family parties always took place. Here we could talk freely without judgmental ears listening in. Over the last few months since that painful Thanksgiving dinner, Max had become my ally and confidant. The back door creaked open, and I looked up to see Max's tall frame silhouetted in the golden light. He held up the pleated paper bag, clenched in his wrinkled hand, and waved it with a triumphant grin as he eased himself down beside me. "Got them! Had to fight off Martha for the last package," he chuckled in his warm, gravelly tone. He pulled out 2 large sugar cookies, handing me one. I bit into the sweet icing with delight. "Thanks, Uncle Max. You're the best." He smiled, his kind eyes twinkling behind his glasses in the dim glow of the porch light. "I know they're your favorite. I figured you deserved something sweet after all that bitterness earlier." I sighed, smile fading. "She's just never going to accept me, is she?" Max shook his head. "Oh, don't worry about Clara. She's set in her ways, but she's all talk." He gave my shoulder a reassuring pat. "Now tell me what you've been up to." My mood lifted instantly. I applied to the Ridley Art Academy summer program. It's only a few weeks, but they have these amazing classes, and... Max held up a hand, eyes widening in surprise. "Applied? Have you told your parents about this?" I bit my lip, smile disappearing. "No. Mom agrees with Aunt Clara that art is just silly hobby. They'd never take it seriously or support me." Max frowned, leaning back against the porch railing. He seemed to be turning something over in his mind. "Lila," he finally said, "your art, your dreams, they matter. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." He paused, brow furrowing in thought. "In fact, I'd like to help, if you'll let me." I stared, confused but intrigued. "Help how?" "Well, clearly, Clara controls the family purse strings, but there are other resources." He reached out and took my hand, giving it an encouraging squeeze. "Let me fund your art academy tuition, anonymously, of course," he added with a conspiratorial wink. "It can be our secret." My eyes widened in disbelief. "What? Uncle Max, that's incredibly generous, but I could never ask you to." He held up a hand. "You're not asking, I'm offering. I believe in you, Lila, and I want to invest in that talent of yours before anyone tries to snuff it out." His words brought tears to my eyes. After years of discouragement, someone was finally taking me and my art seriously. I threw my arms around his neck in an impulsive hug. "Thank you," I choked out through my tears. "I promise I won't waste this opportunity." Max chuckled, patting my back gently. "Of course you won't. I expect a full portfolio of new pieces when you get back." He pulled away, holding me by the shoulders and gazing at me intently. "Just promise me that from now on, you'll start listening to your own voice instead of theirs. Deal?" I took a deep breath and wiped the remaining moisture from my eyes, feeling as if a tremendous weight had been lifted from my soul. Deal? Deal. I crept up the creaky attic steps as stealthily as I could, clutching my latest art supply store purchase. Even with Uncle Max generously funding my artistic pursuits in secret for the past few months, I still felt like a fugitive, sneaking around behind my family's back. But the flush of excitement I felt unboxing shiny new artist pastels made the whole cloak and dagger act worthwhile. I had discovered I loved working with color almost as much as Mom disapproved of my artistic dabbling, as she called it. I smiled to myself. lifting the basement trapdoor slowly. Better to ask her forgiveness later than permission now. Just as the door was about to latch silently behind me, a shrill voice bellowed up from below. "Lila Grace, what in heaven's name are you doing up there?" Aunt Clara's harsh tones echoed off the attic walls, causing me to jump. The pastels tumbled out of my hands, clattering down the steps along with my heart. "Nothing, Aunt Clara," I stammered, scrambling to collect my forbidden treasures strewn across the aging floorboards before she ascended. My efforts were in vain, however, as her heavy footsteps soon thudded behind me. I wheeled around to find Clara glaring down at the vibrant sticks gripped in my hands, eyebrows raised. Wordlessly, she extended her palm. Sheepishly, I handed her the receipt, clutched in my other hand. Squinting through her bifocals, she examined it for several moments while I held my breath. $84.76, she finally exclaimed. "You spent nearly $100 on coloring sticks?" "They're oil pastels," I corrected under my breath. Her sharp eyes snapped to mine. "What was that?" I shrank back against the chill wall. "Nothing. I just used some extra babysitting money, that's all." "Seems like quite a lot of babysitting," she said skeptically. "And just what do you plan to do with these anyway?" Before I could respond, the attic door unexpectedly swung open. We both turned to see Uncle Max mount the last step, slightly out of breath. "There you both are. They're asking for you downstairs, Claire." He addressed my aunt lightly, but his eyes remained steadily locked with mine. Clara glanced between us, lips pursed in suspicion, but she merely let out an impatient huff before tossing the receipt to the floor. "We're not done discussing your little shopping addiction, young lady," she snapped as she brushed past Max. Once her footsteps retreated, I let out the breath I had been holding. "Thank you," I exhaled with relief. Max brushed aside my gratitude with a wave of his hand. "Don't worry about her." Yet behind his casual tone, his brows knitted with concern. I sighed, sadness suddenly deflating my mood as I sunk down onto an old cedar chest. "She's right, though. I can't keep sneaking around like this forever." I lifted my gaze to meet my uncle's kind eyes. "Especially using money you work so hard for. It's too much," I confessed softly. Max crossed the room and crouched down in front of me, gently cupping my chin in his aged hand. "Nonsense. That light I see ignite in you when you create is worth every penny. Don't let Clara make you feel otherwise," he urged. His voice took on an icy edge. "And don't you dare give up." My eyes misted over with emotion. I covered his sturdy hand with my own trembling one. "I won't," I promised in a whisper, "as long as you believe in me." Max smiled then, a smile so warm and full of affection that in that moment I felt I could conquer anything. I paced the threadbare living room carpet, absently winding a lock of hair around my finger. The early morning sun streamed in through the crocheted curtains, glinting off the crystal vase on the coffee table. Usually the colorful wildflowers Aunt Edna lovingly arranged lifted my mood, but today I barely noticed them. "What's got you wearing a groove into my rug so early, child?" I spun to find Edna peering at me curiously from the doorway, already impeccably dressed for the day ahead despite the early hour. I smiled weakly, clearing my throat. "Just thinking about the regional young artist competition," I explained, aiming unsuccessfully for a casual tone. "The application deadline is at the end of the week." Edna nodded knowingly as she settled herself onto the overstuffed sofa. "Clara still refuses to support such nonsense." She made air quotes with her manicured fingers, eliciting a small chuckle from me despite the circumstances. My fleeting laughter quickly faded back into a grimace. "She said if I waste my time entering, I'm also wasting her money. Basically, she's threatening to cut me off if I apply." My shoulders slumped dejectedly at the memory of my aunt's cruel ultimatum from the night before. Before the defeat could fully settle across my face, I felt Edna's graceful hand under my chin, gently tilting my eyes back up to meet her earnest gaze. "Lila, has Clara ever created anything of beauty or value in her entire life?" she asked pointedly. I slowly shook my head, confused but captivated by the sudden fire in her tone. "No. Yet for some bizarre reason, she still believes she is entitled to have authority over yours," Edna continued. Her eyes softened then, brow creasing in motherly concern as she brushed a loose strand of hair behind my ear. "Promise me you won't allow her to dictate your worth, sweetheart," she implored. Don't sacrifice your talent to satisfy that bitter, jealous snake of a woman. She doesn't deserve that power over you. I blinked back, the hot tears suddenly burning behind my eyes. Overcome with emotion, I wrapped my arms around her slender shoulders. "Thank you, Aunt Edna," I whispered into her soft gray hair. In response, she squeezed me tightly, patting my back with her smooth hand. As we finally pulled apart, I caught sight of Uncle Max standing quietly in the doorway behind us. Our eyes met, a silent question hanging between us. "Well, what now?" I took a deep, shaky breath. Hope and fear dueled within me. But seeing the unwavering conviction shining from Max's gaze, I knew I only had one real option. I turned back to Edna with newfound resolve. "You're both right. She doesn't control me. I'm submitting my portfolio, with or without her approval." A slow grin spread across my uncle's wrinkled face. Edna let out a delighted laugh, lightly swatting my knee. "Atta girl!" Max pronounced proudly. He gestured to the unseen painting upstairs that he had secretly financed for my application. "Now, let's make sure they see exactly what they'll be missing out on." Buoyed by their belief in me, I marched from the room with fresh purpose fueling every step. I was through hiding myself and my art away. For the first time, I felt brave enough to stand up for my dreams, no matter the cost. I took a deep, centering breath as I pushed open the tall glass gallery doors. The familiar smells of paint, turpentine, and fresh lacquer washed over me, instantly sparking my creativity. I felt at home here among these floors and walls that showcased artistic vision instead of suppressing it. Unlike my own home, I thought ruefully. I wound through the maze of partition walls displaying the regional Young Artists Contest submissions, searching for my collection. My heels clicked crisply on the polished concrete floors, echoing through the cavernous space. Despite having captured first prize in the competition last month, the thrill of that victory had been short-lived. Oh sure, Edna and Max had celebrated exuberantly on my behalf, toasting my talent with a bottle of contraband champagne, but my parents could barely mutter a half-hearted congratulations through tight lips. Mother refused to even glance at the museum passes and tuition voucher the contest awarded me. And Aunt Clara, she had flown into such a jealous rage when she learned of my win that she stormed off in disgust, vowing to never speak to me again. Her reaction still stung, marring what should have been a shining moment of validation. I rounded a corner, and there suddenly were my paintings, a collection of vivid, abstract cityscapes titled Overlooked Beauty. I traced a gentle finger down the gilded plaque bearing my name, allowing myself a small, satisfied smile. No matter their reaction, this was still an incredible honor at just 18. These pieces represented my true vision, not anyone else's expectations of what art, or my future, should look like. My smile slipped as footsteps echoed behind me, followed by a grating chuckle that could only belong to one person. I steeled myself as Clara's scowl appeared over my shoulder in the painting's reflective glass. "Well, it's about time you grew up and started painting something worthwhile," she proclaimed with begrudging approval. Her critical eye assessed the building's luminous geometries and brooding alleyways. "At least these I can actually recognize as art, instead of that avant-garde nonsense you usually dirty a canvas with." I clenched my fists behind my back, holding back the acid retort on the tip of my tongue. As I met her baleful gaze in the glass, I realized defending my work was no longer needed. The prize ribbons did that for me now. I simply cleared my throat and gestured to a nearby painting of a crumbling liquor store glowing vibrantly against a stormy sky. "The buildings no one else notices often hold the most beauty inside," I offered mildly. "It's all about perspective." Clara narrowed her eyes, processing the subtle meaning behind my words. Before she could supply a scathing rebuttal, however, Max suddenly materialized beside us. "There you both are. Lila, the gallery director, is looking for you," he interjected smoothly, placing a proprietary hand on my shoulder. "The mayor wants to discuss commissioning a city mural. Shall we?" He guided me away without another glance at Clara's dumbfounded expression. As we walked, I felt lighter and more self-assured than I had in years. The Aunt Claras of the world would always try to hide my shine out of jealousy. But it was getting far harder to dim my inner light these days, especially with Uncle Max so devoted to stoking my creative fire. A waiter crossed in front of me, obscuring my view of the gallery's entrance for a moment. I tracked him impatiently with my eyes as he wove through the well-dressed crowd, offering champagne and hors d'oeuvres on a silver platter. When he finally moved aside, I caught sight of Aunt Clara making yet another dramatic entrance. I grimaced to myself behind my own champagne flute. Trust Clara to be fashionably late to an event celebrating someone else's success. She glided into the gallery in a slinky black dress more suited to a cocktail party than an art show, air-kissing the room as all eyes turned to admire her. I noticed more than a few men's gazes linger a bit too long on her overly accentuated curves as she held court. "Quite an eye-catching woman," Max commented discreetly as he appeared beside me, following my irritated gaze. "She knows it too," I muttered before taking another sip. "But let her preen. Tonight is about my art, not her." Max smiled and clinked his glass gently against mine. "I'll toast to that." Any further conversation was interrupted by the gallery director's amplified voice welcoming the crowd. I thanked her politely as she congratulated me on the turnout and praised my evocative urban scenes. As she moved away to confer briefly with the curator, Clara slinked up in her wake. "Well, congratulations, dear," she purred with mock sincerity, air-kissing my cheek. "Who knew your silly little pastime might actually lead somewhere?" Her patronizing smile didn't reach her eyes. I suppose beauty is subjective after all. I resisted the urge to wipe off her cloying lipstick. "How gracious of you to come, Aunt Clara," I replied evenly instead, "since I know how subjective creative pursuits can be for you." Clara's painted smile faded slightly. Before she could supply what was surely a scorching retort, the director returned to the microphone, bringing the chatter to a close. "Again, we are so pleased to showcase this promising young talent's unique perspective," she said, gesturing toward me. "It's clear Lila has a fresh, meaningful artistic vision, one that her Uncle Max should be very proud of cultivating." Murmurs of appreciation echoed from the audience along with a smattering of applause. Clara's head swiveled sharply between me and Max. Under the weight of her glare, understanding visibly dawned across her primped features, followed swiftly by outrage. But before she could cause a scene, I stepped forward, holding up a gracious hand to acknowledge the accolades. "Actually, my Aunt Clara deserves quite a lot of credit for the inspiration behind this collection," I interjected smoothly into the microphone. "In fact, the title, Overlooked Beauty, is an homage to her unique perspective on my creative potential over the years." I turned to lock eyes with Clara, whose face had turned nearly purple. But true vision lies in those willing to look closer and nurture unseen gifts, not suppress them, regardless of popular opinion. I smiled benignly. "Don't you agree, Aunt Clara?" Her mouth opened and closed like a gasping fish under the weight of too many eyes and the hidden accusation in my words. For once it seemed Clara had no clever retort or searing glance to offer in return. I smiled wider. "I thought so. Cheers to fresh vision." "Then," I declared brightly, raising my glass. The crowd, oblivious to our true conversational undercurrents, echoed my toast eagerly, much to Aunt Clara's dismay. I stepped back to scrutinize my latest mural sketch, pencil smudges staining my hands. The city council had commissioned a stylized landscape to adorn the community center's remodeled facade. I wanted it to capture the neighborhood's vitality and cultural roots. As I reached for a rag to wipe the charcoal from my fingers, my phone vibrated loudly against the work table. I smiled involuntarily when I saw Uncle Max's face flash on the cracked screen. "Working hard as always," he exclaimed when I answered. His warm approval still caused a glow of pride to swell in my chest. "Just trying to do justice to the Irvington district," I replied, holding up my drawing to the light. "But it's getting there." "Well, make sure to take a break soon to eat," Max gently scolded. "We need to keep that brilliant artistic mind of yours fed, after all." I laughed. "I will, and thank you, Uncle Max." "You can thank me by letting me take you out tonight to celebrate properly," he insisted. "The whole family is getting together at Ambrosia, and I want to toast my world-famous niece." My smile faltered slightly. World-famous might be stretching it a bit, and honestly, I'd rather skip another tense family dinner if it's all the same to you. An uncomfortable silence stretched between us. I instantly regretted declining his sweet offer, but the idea of facing Aunt Clara and her scorn even now, months later, still made my stomach turn. The wounds from her resentment ran deep. Max cleared his throat gently. Well, I understand if you're still feeling raw, but for what it's worth, Clara has been trying to make amends lately. I snorted in disbelief. Clara doesn't do amends. I'm serious, Max insisted. She knows she behaved wretchedly. Don't you think she at least deserves a chance for old time's sake? I bit my lip, considering. The genuine entreaty in his voice gave me pause. And he had a point. Holding grudges had never been in my nature. I sighed deeply. Okay, I'll be the bigger person, but I'm not promising anything more than basic civility. Max chuckled, clearly pleased. That's all I ask. I'll swing by at 7 to get you. See you soon. I set down the phone with a reluctant smile. One tense dinner couldn't derail my newfound creative joy and confidence, and if Aunt Clara was genuinely ready to bury the hatchet, then maybe, just maybe, it was time I did too. After changing into a smart blouse and slacks, I gave my hair a final fluff in the hall mirror right as the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, sent up a quick prayer for patience, and went to greet my uncle. To my surprise, however, Aunt Clara's perfectly made-up face peered nervously at me instead when I opened the door. Oh, good, you're home, she exhaled, clearly relieved. She smoothed her hands down her simple black sheath. I was hoping we could talk privately before dinner. I stared wordlessly as a contrite Clara glanced at her heels. May I come in? You must have lost your way, were the chilling words Marla uttered, her voice laced with faux concern as I found myself unable to enter my own home, my key futile against the new locks. I stood frozen on the porch, disbelief and anger brewing inside me as I stared at the smug expression on my mother-in-law's face. At 58, Marla still exuded an air of aristocracy and old money, draped in designer clothes and jewelry that sharply contrasted my casual, thrift store-inspired style. What's going on, Marla? I asked, struggling to keep my voice even. Why can't I get into my house? Oh, sweetie, I think you're confused, Marla replied, her words dripping with condescension. This is my son Elliot's house. Now why don't you run along home to your little apartment? My hands curled into fists as I fought the urge to grab Marla and force my way inside. This was the house I had grown up in, that my parents had left to me when they passed away last year. Elliot and I had spent the last 6 months renovating it, infusing each room with special touches that represented our shared vision for our future. This was my sanctuary, my pride and joy. And now Marla was trying to take it all away. Don't play games with me, I said sharply. You know very well this is my house. Now open the door and let me in. Marla sighed theatrically. I'm afraid that's simply not possible. You see, Elliot signed the house over to me for safekeeping while he's away on business. We can't have undesirables barging in now, can we? My blood boiled at her words. Elliot, my husband of 5 years, was currently on an extended work trip in Japan. He always fretted about me being alone, but I cherished my independence. Little did I know, he had made arrangements behind my back and given his manipulative mother total control in his absence. I took a deep breath, willing myself to remain calm. Elliot would never sign over my house without talking to me first. You're lying, Marla. Am I? She challenged, her brown eyes glinting. Why don't you give my darling son a call and find out? I wanted nothing more than to wipe that smug look off Marla's face. But I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. Fine. I'll call Elliot and clear this whole thing up, I replied evenly. But don't get too comfortable in my home. You won't be staying long. Marla merely chuckled and waved her fingers at me in farewell. As I walked down the front steps, I turned to see her disappear inside, closing the door firmly behind her. Rage and disbelief warred within me as I stood on the sidewalk, staring at the house I had poured my heart into. Marla had always resented my common upbringing, believing her precious architect son could do better than a freelance graphic designer. But I never imagined her snobbery and disdain would manifest in something so cruel. I scrolled through my contacts until I found Elliot's number. He answered on the 3rd ring, his cheerful voice like a balm to my soul. I quickly explained what had happened with Marla. A heavy silence followed, broken only by Elliot's deep sigh. Corinne, there's something I have to tell you. I can't believe you would do this to me, I said. my voice trembling as I paced the small confines of my studio apartment. On the video call, Elliot looked back at me helplessly. "I'm so sorry, Corinne. I never meant for it to happen this way. My mother ambushed me with the paperwork just as I was leaving for the airport. She claimed it was just a temporary measure for emergencies. I didn't realize she had other plans." I raked my fingers through my hair in frustration. "Your mother has always hated me. How could you think giving her any control over my house was a good idea?" "You're right. I messed up," Elliot admitted. "I let my mother manipulate me, and you're paying the price." I sighed, my anger dissipating. I knew Marla's conniving ways all too well. "Well, it's done now. We need to focus on getting my house back." "I'll be home as soon as I can. We'll sort this out, I promise," Elliot replied. We said our goodbyes, and I sank down onto my lumpy mattress, wondering how I had gone from renovating my childhood home to being effectively homeless in just one day. Over the next few days, I settled into a routine. Each morning, I stopped by the house, knocking loudly despite knowing Marla wouldn't let me in. I needed her to know I wasn't going anywhere. Afternoons were spent at coffee shops, using their Wi-Fi to work on freelance design projects. Evenings were reserved for takeout food and strategizing my next moves with my friend Julia over the phone. Nearly a week had passed when I returned to the house one morning to find the front door unexpectedly ajar. I entered cautiously, surprised by the drastic changes that had already taken place. The beautiful pottery and artwork I had proudly displayed were gone, replaced by garish paintings I recognized from Marla's previous home. My cozy, bohemian furnishings had disappeared, swapped for stiff, antique pieces that exuded cold formality. "Hello, dear, I hope you like what I've done with the place." Marla's falsely sweet voice rang out as she sashayed into the room. I bit my tongue to stop myself from screaming at her. "Didn't take you long to make yourself at home," I said bitterly. "Well, it is my home now," Marla replied snidely. "Anyway, I'm hosting the Ladies' Society tea here tomorrow. I assume you can show yourself out?" I stood there fuming as she prattled on about plans for redecorating the kitchen and removing the flower garden I had painstakingly nurtured. It was clear she intended to erase any trace of me from this house, from my colorful tiles in the bathroom to the secret hideout Elliot and I had built as kids. "Just remember, this isn't over," I told Marla as I left, catching a glimpse of her scowling before the door slammed shut behind me. As I walked back to my car, I took some deep breaths, trying to regain my composure. I knew Marla's scheme was only beginning, and I would need to be strategic and resilient to survive this battle. But as I caught sight of my childhood home one last time, I made a vow. One way or another, I was taking back what was mine. The next few weeks were agonizing. Marla's presence seemed to infest every aspect of my life, no matter how hard I tried to avoid her. She hijacked the weekly neighborhood potluck, critiquing my common potato salad recipe and insisting on upscale catering instead. When I volunteered at the community garden, she was suddenly everywhere, gossiping loudly about my unladylike appearance. At the grocery store one day, I overheard her telling the cashier about Elliot's gold-digging wife who married him for his money. I had to stop myself from dumping my cart of items over her primly styled hair. The final straw came when she crashed the annual fundraising gala for the youth art program I had helped launch. I was mingling with donors when Marla appeared, interrupting every conversation to shift focus towards herself. "You'll have to excuse my daughter-in-law's eccentric taste in fashion," she simpered to a businessman I was speaking with. "I do wish Elliot had chosen someone a bit more polished, but we make do." I clenched my fist tightly around my champagne glass to stop it from shaking. The past few weeks of Marla's non-stop attacks had pushed me to my breaking point. I wanted nothing more than to scream at her to stop ruining my life, but I knew that's exactly what she wanted, a public spectacle that made me look deranged. So I quietly excused myself from the conversation and slipped outside, taking deep breaths of the cool night air. I tried Elliot's number again, but my call went straight to voicemail. With his long hours and remote job site, our communication had dwindled to quick check-ins and fuzzy video calls. I had never felt more alone. I steeled myself and went back inside, avoiding Marla for the rest of the evening. When I arrived home that night, I realized she had escalated her sabotage. A large moving truck was parked outside, and 2 burly men were hauling my furniture and belongings out the front door. "What are you doing?" I cried, rushing over. "Just doing a bit of redecorating, dear," Marla called out from the porch, smirking. "I donated your tacky old things to charity. Don't worry, the new items will be much more elegant." I helplessly watched years of my collected items disappear into the truck. The quilt my grandmother had stitched, the retro table Elliot had refurbished for my birthday, the overstuffed sofa covered in memories. Soon, nothing remained but empty rooms and the biting scent of fresh paint. Numbly, I entered my tiny apartment. Any remaining energy had been sapped, replaced by a cold sense of hopelessness. I had tried to fight back subtly against Marla, but at every turn she had outmaneuvered me. As I lay in bed that night, darkness clawing at the edges of my mind, a single thought emerged like a flicker of light. If I couldn't win by playing nice, it was time to get tough. Marla wanted a war? That's exactly what she would get. The next morning, I began to plan my counterattack. I sat staring in disbelief at the legal document in my hands, the words blurring together. Marla hadn't just manipulated her way into my home. She had actually made herself a co-owner through fraudulent means. According to the paperwork, she had produced a handwritten will, supposedly left by my late father, stating he wanted Marla to have joint custody of the house. But I knew without a doubt it was fake. My father had made me the sole beneficiary in his official will, leaving me the house and small inheritance. Marla had woven an elaborate scheme to steal everything. I sucked in a sharp breath, trying to calm the rage bubbling inside me. After speaking with my lawyer, I now understood the full extent of Marla's deceit. She had been planning this for a while, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And I had played right into her hands by not having my own name added to the property records once I inherited it. Marla must have fabricated the will, bribed an official, and then coerced Elliot into signing over temporary rights in his absence. She knew I didn't have the proper legal documentation to fight back, or the money for a prolonged legal battle. I had spent the last few days camped out in my car near the house, only leaving to use the gym showers and pick up snacks. I was determined to confront Marla face to face about her duplicity. When her Cadillac finally pulled into the driveway, I leaped out of my car and rushed over before she could escape inside. "Well, look who it is," Marla sneered. "Come to beg for money, or just to admire my lovely new landscaping?" "Cut the act, Marla," I snapped. "I know what you did. You forged a will so you could steal my house." I waved the document in her face. Marla glanced at it casually, then met my gaze with an icy stare. "I have no idea what you're talking about, but clearly the stress has become too much for you." She spoke slowly, as if addressing a child throwing a tantrum. "Enough!" I shouted, finally losing my cool. "That will is fake, and you know it. My father would never have left you anything. You're a lying, manipulative thief." For a long moment we stood there, eyes locked, the truth hanging nakedly between us. Then Marla's lips curled into a sinister smile. "Sweet, naive girl. Even if what you're alleging is true, do you really think you can stop me? I hold all the power now. The law, money, status, it's all on my side." She leaned in close, her cultured voice dropping to a venomous hiss. "Face it, you don't belong here. Why don't you crawl back to the gutter where you came from?" I recoiled at her words, the pain cutting deeply. But the initial anguish quickly transformed into iron resolve. I had tried handling this legally and ethically, and it had failed. Now it was time for a new strategy, no matter how extreme. Marla seemed to sense the shift in me. For the first time, a shadow of uncertainty flickered across her face. I gave her a thin smile. "You're right about one thing, Marla. You've held all the power until now, but that ends today." I turned and walked away, leaving her standing agape on the sidewalk. I had a lot of planning to do and nothing to lose. The time had come for war. Over the next few weeks, I became consumed with gathering evidence against Marla. I knew I needed hard proof of her deceit if I had any hope of reclaiming my house legally. I started with the fake will, working with a lawyer friend to analyze the document. We discovered anomalies, the wrong type of paper, a font that didn't exist when my father was alive. It was enough to cast serious doubts about its authenticity. Next, I reached out to my father's old business partner, someone I knew Marla had been cozying up to for years. After some persuasion, he finally admitted she had asked him to act as a witness and verify the will. The final piece fell into place. I also began trailing Marla, documenting her activities and conversations. Most days she flitted aimlessly around town, a bored socialite looking to stir up drama. But she seemed to have a weekly appointment that piqued my interest, a visit to a rundown apartment building on the edge of town. One overcast Tuesday, I followed Marla's Cadillac to the familiar spot and watched her disappear inside. A few minutes later she emerged looking worried, accompanied by a squat, nervous-looking man I recognized as the town clerk. After exchanging whispered words and passing a thick envelope, they quickly parted ways. My mind raced with possibilities. Blackmail? Bribery? Either way, this man clearly knew secrets that could threaten Marla's polished veneer. Over the next few weeks, I continued tailing Marla, compiling a detailed record of her activities and odd meetings. Her mask of aristocracy and moral superiority had slipped, revealing deceit and corruption. I wanted it all exposed. The final piece fell into place when I convinced the nervous clerk to meet me one night for drinks. A few rounds later, his lips started to loosen, confessing how Marla had paid him handsomely over the years to conveniently lose certain records and speed along questionable documents. Armed with this arsenal of evidence, I requested an emergency hearing with the judge overseeing my house dispute. My lawyer and I laid out the paper trail of fraud and deception Marla had perpetrated to gain control. After reviewing the proof, the judge agreed to freeze all actions relating to the property's ownership until a full investigation could be completed. For the first time in months, I felt empowered again. The law had failed me before, but now justice finally seemed within reach. Marla must have realized her scheme was unraveling. She became a ghost, her usual swarm of social activity ceasing. No more smug morning jogs past my car. No more popping into restaurants to loudly discuss her summer plans for my home improvements. But her disappearance didn't fool me. I knew this temporary retreat was just the quiet before the storm, a chance for her to strategize how she could regain the upper hand. Well, I was done being strategic. Marla wanted an all-out war, I would give her one. And this time, only one of us was walking away victorious. The day of the showdown arrived. Armed with my evidence, I marched up to the front door of my house, ready to confront Marla for the last time. Before I could knock, the door swung open abruptly. Marla stood there scowling, clearly perturbed that I had caught her off guard. "What do you want now?" she snapped. "We need to talk," I replied evenly. "May I come in?" Marla hesitated before reluctantly stepping aside. I crossed the threshold, my emotions swirling as I stood in the home that had been stolen from me. Nothing looked familiar anymore. My bohemian decor had been replaced by gaudy antiques and impersonal minimalism. But underneath Marla's superficial touches, the heart and bones of the home remained. The flow of the rooms my mother had designed, the creaks in the floorboards my father had never fixed. I took a deep breath. "I know what you did, Marla. The will was fake. You bribed the clerk. You have no legal right to my house." Marla scoffed. "You have no proof of these ridiculous allegations. I'm growing very tired of your harassment." I held her icy gaze unflinchingly. "Actually, I have plenty of proof. Sworn statements exposing your lies, records of your shady dealings. I know enough to destroy your facade of respectability." Marla's defiant expression wavered slightly. I pressed my advantage. "It's over. Your schemes stop now. Vacate my home immediately, or I take this evidence to court and ensure you face charges." Heavy silence descended as Marla stared at me stone-faced. For a moment I thought she might actually acquiesce. Then her lips curled into a sneer. "Do you think a few pieces of paper can scare me? I built an empire while you still clung to your parents' apron strings. No one will believe the delusional ramblings of a petty little—" "Mom, stop." We both turned in shock at the newcomer's voice. Elliot stood in the doorway, suitcase in hand, his face etched with grief and disappointment. Marla's haughty demeanor instantly melted. "Elliot, you're home early." She scurried over, attempting an embrace. He held up a hand. "I heard enough, Mom. Corinne told me everything. How could you betray me like this?" "She's lying." Marla shrieked, pointing a manicured finger my way. "I'm the victim here. This vindictive girl has done nothing but spew vicious untruths since the day you married her." No more lies, Elliot thundered. I made excuses for you my whole life, but I won't let you hurt my family anymore. He moved to stand by my side, slipping his hand into mine. Marla gaped at him in disbelief. Darling, please, be reasonable, she implored, her voice cracking. I'm done being reasonable, Elliot replied wearily. This ends today. Vacate Corinne's home now, and never bother us again. Marla stared wildly between us, the madness clear in her eyes. For a moment I thought she might lash out physically in a final desperate act, but Elliot's stoic presence kept her contained. Finally her shoulders slumped in defeat. Without another word she shoved past us and disappeared into the guest room, emerging minutes later with 2 hastily packed suitcases. Elliot kept his eyes trained on the floor as his mother paused next to him, waiting for some show of affection, forgiveness, anything. But he remained stony and silent. The click of her heels faded as Marla retreated down the walk. I watched through the window as her Cadillac glided away, disappearing around the corner, perhaps for the last time. In the weeks following Marla's eviction, Elliot and I worked non-stop to reclaim the house. We boxed up her garish furnishings and listed them for sale, using the money to restore the cozy bohemian aesthetic I had lovingly created. Elliot immersed himself in repairing the structural damage Marla had wreaked, while I scrubbed away every trace of her, wanting to cleanse the home of her poisonous presence. We received regular vitriolic calls and texts from Marla, who was now living in a budget motel on the edge of town. Her life of leisure had been permanently disrupted. With her web of lies exposed, old social contacts had abandoned her. Even the lawyers she approached refused to represent someone with her reputation. She was well and truly friendless for the first time in her privileged life. I almost felt pity seeing how far the once untouchable socialite had fallen. But the sting of her cruelty and deception still burned too freshly. Maybe we should change the locks and security codes, just in case, I suggested to Elliot one evening, after an especially nasty series of messages from Marla blaming us for her downfall. Elliot nodded warily. Yeah, it's probably not a bad idea. She's clearly becoming more unhinged. We were sipping coffee the next morning when we heard the pounding at the front door. I jumped nervously, but Elliot gave my hand a reassuring squeeze as we made our way to the foyer. I peered through the side window and groaned. Marla stood on the porch. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, clutching a bulging folder of papers. Her fist pummeled the door relentlessly. I swung it open, noting Marla swayed slightly in her impractical stiletto heels. What do you want, Marla? Elliot asked with forced patience. I want back what's owed to me, Marla shrieked. This is my home, too. I have a legal right. She shook the folder violently at us. I stifled a bitter laugh. Still clinging to the lies, Marla? That forged will didn't work before. It won't work now. Marla's bloodshot eyes narrowed. Oh, this has nothing to do with the will. I'm referring to my claim as co-signer on this property's mortgage. She flashed a smug grin as Elliot and I exchanged stunned looks. In all the drama, we had overlooked this crucial financial detail. Sensing our realization, Marla cackled. You didn't actually think I'd hand over my main leverage so foolishly, did you? As long as I'm tied to that mortgage, I have a path back in. So I suggest. No need. The mortgage has been paid off. Elliot's calm words cut through Marla's tirade. Her face went slack. What are you talking about? She stammered. I liquidated my inheritance and paid off the entire mortgage 2 days ago, Elliot explained, crossing his arms. You have no claim here anymore. Marla stared at him in disbelief as the folder of papers slipped from her grasp, scattering across the porch. It's over, Mother, Elliot stated firmly. Now please leave before I have to call the police. For once, Marla had no venomous retort, no more schemes to wield. She backed away silently, teetering on her heels as she retreated to her weathered car. Elliot slipped his arm around me as we watched her go. I leaned my head on his shoulder, feeling the sunlight wash over us, bathing everything in hopeful clarity. Perhaps this drawn-out war was finally nearing its end. And emerging from the rubble, Elliot and I had somehow found each other again. The weeks after Marla's final defeat passed in a blur. Elliot and I threw ourselves into restoring normalcy, filling the rooms with love and light once more. We unpacked my eccentric art and vintage finds from storage, arranging them alongside Elliot's architectural drawings and photography. The house slowly began to feel like ours again. Workers helped repair the structural damage and cosmetic sabotage Marla had caused in her zealous renovations. Elliot redesigned parts of the space to be more accessible for any future children we hope to have. Meanwhile, I returned to pursuing my freelance graphic design work, setting up a small home studio. It felt healing to nurture my own passion again. Within a few months, I had built up a robust client list and transitioned my work into a thriving online business. Elliot and I also focused on strengthening the bonds Marla had strained, hosting potlucks with generous neighbors who forgave my absence, having long talks with friends to clear up her malicious gossip. To our relief, we received word that Marla planned to move to another state permanently, wanting a fresh start far removed from her ruined reputation here. We changed the locks one final time, just in case. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, we finally declared the house restored. To celebrate, we hosted an elaborate backyard barbecue. Twinkling lights were strung across the trees, music filled the air, and laughter carried on the breeze. It was a new beginning for everyone. Amongst the festivities, Elliot surprised me by dropping to one knee, presenting me with his late grandmother's ring set in a new band. "I know we've been through so much hardship already as a married couple," he began emotionally, "but I wanted to give you this as a symbol of a fresh start. So will you renew our vows with me?" Through joyful tears, I said yes, embracing my husband tightly. The people around us broke into cheers and applause. It felt like all the brokenness was truly behind us. On a cool evening a few weeks later, we held an intimate lakeside ceremony as the sun set brilliantly behind the trees. Surrounded by close friends and neighbors, we recommitted ourselves to each other after all we had endured. The struggles of the past year had tested us in every way possible, but ultimately the shared trauma had reforged an unbreakable bond between Elliot and I. Later that night, I rested my head contentedly on my husband's chest as we swayed together under the fairy lights twinkling on our back patio. "No matter what she tried, your mother could never destroy this," Elliot said softly, pulling me closer. I smiled up at him. Our love was always stronger than her hate. He leaned down and kissed me tenderly, the adoration in his eyes washing away any remaining shadows of the past. As we turned slowly on the dance floor, the glow from our home enveloped us in warmth. The house was no longer just brick and wood. It now embodied our resilience. With Elliot's hand firmly grasping mine, I knew I had the strength to withstand anything life threw our way next. Marla's bitterness had forged us into warriors, and together we had emerged victorious. It was just another quiet evening at home until the phone call came and turned our world upside down. Marcus and I were sitting at the dinner table, enjoying the salmon and roasted potatoes I'd made, when his cell phone started buzzing. He glanced at the screen and froze. "Who is it?" I asked. "It's Selena," he said grimly. Selena, his 19-year-old daughter from his disastrous first marriage who he hadn't spoken to in years. My heart sank. Nothing good could come of this. Marcus answered the call and I studied his face as he listened, his eyes narrowing in concern. After a few terse words, he hung up and let out a long sigh. "What did she want?" I asked, bracing myself. "She's coming to live with us. Her roommate kicked her out, so she's driving here tomorrow." I dropped my fork, my appetite vanishing. "Here? For how long?" She didn't say, but it sounded like she plans to stay indefinitely. I felt the panic rising in my chest. We'd worked so hard to build a good life, a stable home. Marcus and I both came from broken families, rife with lies and betrayals. It had taken years of therapy and trust building to heal those wounds. The last thing we needed was a destructive, entitled 19-year-old tearing open those scars again. "Can't her mother take her in?" I asked. Marcus shook his head. "You know how that went. The divorce was nuclear. They haven't spoken since." Before I could object further, we heard the front door open. Our 16-year-old son Eli walked in, home from basketball practice. He joined us at the table, his wavy brown hair damp with sweat. "Hey, Mom, Dad, what's going on?" he asked, detecting the tension immediately. He was an exceptionally perceptive kid. Marcus gave him a tired smile. "We just got a call from your sister Selena. She's going to be staying with us for a while." Eli's eyes widened in surprise. He knew little about Selena, other than the few bitter stories Marcus had told over the years. Okay, Eli said slowly. How long is she staying? We don't know yet, Marcus admitted. An uneasy silence settled on the room. I could imagine the worried thoughts spinning through Eli's mind. Selena's sudden arrival would disrupt the stability he valued so deeply, but he was too kind-hearted to voice those concerns. I reached over and gave his hand a reassuring squeeze. Then I turned to Marcus, my eyes flashing with determination. We need to set firm ground rules, I said. No freeloading or taking advantage. If she wants to stay here, she needs to get a job and contribute. Marcus nodded. You're right. I'll make that clear when she arrives. But as we cleaned up the remains of dinner, I couldn't shake the feeling that nothing good would come from Selena's return. The past has a way of catching up, even if you barricade the door. The next morning I woke up feeling uneasy. Today was the day Selena would arrive. Marcus had cleared out the small guest room for her, but I doubted she'd be happy with the cramped space. Over breakfast, Marcus tried reassuring Eli. Don't worry, I'm sure Selena has grown up a lot since I last saw her. Just try to make her feel welcome. Eli nodded, but I could tell he was dreading her arrival as much as I was. Around noon, we heard a car pull up outside. That must be her, Marcus said. My heart pounded as we went to the front door. A blonde girl stepped out of a beat-up hatchback jammed with clothes and boxes. She looked nothing like the sullen, scrawny 13-year-old I remembered from the divorce hearings years ago. She'd grown tall and pretty, wearing stylish clothes and expertly applied makeup. But her bright smile didn't reach her eyes. Marcus hugged her awkwardly. Welcome home, Selena. Thanks, Daddy, she said sweetly, though she'd made no effort to contact him since the divorce. It's so good to see you again. Over the next hour, Selena carried in her boxes and bags, piling them in the small guest room despite the lack of space. She rejected Marcus's offers to help, barking at him not to touch her things. So much for her growing up, I thought. At dinner, Selena dominated the conversation, chatting about herself and sprinkling in subtle insults toward me. I can't believe you're still working as a nurse, Lena. Wouldn't you rather do something more interesting? I bit my tongue. Nursing was my passion, but Selena clearly looked down on it. When Eli talked about applying for college scholarships, Selena laughed sharply. Good luck getting enough money to attend a decent school. Eli's face burned. I knew how hard he'd worked for those scholarships, maintaining straight A's while excelling at sports. After dinner, I pulled Marcus aside. We need to set ground rules for Selena, I urged. No more of this entitled behavior. He sighed. You're right, I'll talk to her. But over the next few days, nothing changed. Selena continued acting rudely, while doing nothing to get a job or help around the house. My patience wore dangerously thin. Then came the final straw. I arrived home from work one evening to find Selena gone and Eli sitting alone, his face pale. What's wrong? I asked. She stole my laptop, and my money jar was empty. His lower lip trembled. There was over $500 in there from my job. Rage boiled inside me. That money represented years of Eli's hard work and sacrifice. When Selena finally swanned in, I confronted her. Give back Eli's money and his laptop now. She smirked. Or what? You'll kick me out. I wanted to slap that smug look off her face. But violence wouldn't solve anything. Selena was toxic, destroying all she touched. I had to protect my family from her, even if it meant driving away Marcus's daughter for good. I decided right then and there. Selena had to go. Her toxic behavior was destroying our family, and I refused to let that continue. When Marcus came home, I told him what Selena had done. She stole from her own brother after we opened our home to her. I want her out, Marcus. Today. He looked pained. I know Selena's behavior is unacceptable, but she's still my daughter. If we kick her out now, she'll have nowhere to go. So we just let her keep stealing from us? I cried. She's manipulating you. Can't you see that? Give me a little more time to work things out with her, Marcus pleaded. With some boundaries, I think Selena can change. I shook my head in frustration. Marcus's parental guilt was blinding him to Selena's true nature. But I had to pick my battles carefully to avoid damaging my marriage. 1 week, I said. If her behavior doesn't improve drastically in 1 week, she has to leave. Marcus agreed reluctantly. I only hoped we could limit the damage Selena inflicted before then. But over the next few days, things only got worse. Selena stayed out partying all night, then slept past noon. She helped herself to my jewelry, claimed they were just loans. When I demanded she get a job, she scoffed. Why work when Daddy lets me stay here for free? One night, I came home to find her smoking on the couch. When I yelled at her to take it outside, she blew smoke in my face. You're not my mother. Don't tell me what to do. I felt sick, realizing the extent of Selena's manipulation. She knew exactly how to provoke me while acting sweetly innocent around Marcus. The final straw came when I received a call from my credit card company, asking about a suspicious purchase. Over $2,000 at a luxury clothing store in LA. It didn't take a genius to realize Selena had stolen my card. She'd racked up more debt in a week than Eli and I spent on food in a month. When Marcus came home, I confronted him, shaking with rage. Your daughter is destroying us. I want her out of this house tonight. Marcus's face was haggard. You're right. I wanted to believe Selena could change, but clearly she's out of control. It's me or her, Marcus, I said quietly. Choose carefully. He pulled me into a hug. You and Eli will always come first. I just pray we can get through this without tearing our family apart. We sat down with Selena, and Marcus told her she had to move out immediately. She flew into a rage, hurling insults and accusations. I stayed silent, letting Marcus handle his deranged daughter. When Selena stomped off to pack her things, Marcus put his head in his hands. I'm so sorry I brought this madness into our home, he said. You and Eli mean everything to me. However long it takes, I promise we'll recover from Selena's poison. I squeezed his hand, drawing strength from his words. With unity, we would survive this trial. Selena's twisted schemes could not break our family. The weeks after kicking out Selena were tense. Marcus tried calling her several times, but she refused to speak with him. I knew he was torn up with guilt, blaming himself for how she'd turned out. I tried reassuring him we'd done the right thing. Selena was like a tornado, destroying all in her path. We changed the locks and canceled my stolen credit card. The bank's fraud department was understanding, agreeing to waive the bogus charges. Slowly, our lives regained a sense of normalcy. Then the letter came, shattering that fragile peace all over again. It was from a bank I'd never heard of, thanking me for opening a new credit account. My breath caught in my throat as I read the attached paperwork. Someone had applied for a personal loan in my name, forging my signature on the forms. $15,000 already deposited into an unknown account. My hands shook with anger and panic. That amount of debt could devastate our family, and there was only one person who would stoop so low. When Marcus came home, I thrust the letter at him. Your daughter is trying to destroy us. We need to call the police. His eyes widened in shock as he read the letter. My God, I know Selena has issues, but outright identity theft? He slumped at the table, head in his hands. This is all my fault. I failed her as a father. My anger thawed slightly. As much as Selena infuriated me, I knew this betrayal devastated Marcus even more. I sat down beside him. You did your best with her under terrible circumstances. Some people just refuse to change. But now we need to focus on protecting ourselves and Eli. Will you call the police to report the fraud? Marcus sighed heavily, but nodded. You're right. I need to do the responsible thing, no matter how painful. We spent an agonizing hour on the phone with the police and bank, filing reports about Selena's crime. It still boggled my mind that the smiling little girl I remembered from Marcus's wedding photos could grow into this heartless criminal. The bank investigator informed us the loan had been taken out locally, meaning Selena was still lurking nearby. The thought made my skin crawl. That night, as we lay in bed, I turned to Marcus. We'll get that loan invalidated. The bank believes we're the victims here. I hope you're right, he said, because if not, this could financially devastate us. We could even lose the house. The unspoken fear hung heavy between us. Selena wasn't content just poisoning her father's memory of her. She aimed to completely destroy his new family, no matter the cost. As I finally drifted off to sleep, I repeated a silent mantra. Selena's scheming couldn't touch us, no matter how hard she tried. Goodness and truth would prevail. But in my heart, I harbored a cold anger I'd never felt before. If Selena continued threatening my loved ones, I would stop at nothing to take her down. Over the next few weeks, we heard nothing from Selena. The bank was investigating the fraudulent loan, buying us time before the debts came due. The police had tried visiting Selena's last known address, but she'd already vacated her apartment, leaving no trace. Marcus spent hours scouring online records, trying to find where Selena had disappeared to, but it seemed she knew how to avoid being caught, a true con artist. Then on a sunny Saturday, everything changed again. Marcus was at a weekend teaching conference, so Eli and I decided to see a movie together. But when we returned home, I instantly sensed something was wrong. The front door was ajar. My pulse pounded as I rushed inside, Eli close behind. "Wait in the hall," I told him. If Selena was lurking inside, I didn't want Eli getting hurt. I crept forward, peering into the darkened rooms. At first, nothing seemed disturbed. Then I reached Eli's bedroom. The entire room had been ransacked. Dresser drawers flung open, mattress upended, closet ransacked. Eli rushed in behind me, crying out in shock. That's when I saw the paper on his bed, scrawled with a taunting message, "College fund gone. Oops, better start bussing tables, loser brother." Red spots swam before my eyes. The college fund Marcus and I had painstakingly built for Eli, untouched until now, nearly $20,000 for his future, was gone. Stolen by Selena to fund her extravagant tastes, while she left crude insults for the brother she'd never bothered to know. I heard a strangled sob behind me. Eli's face was white, eyes glittering with tears. "All that money you saved for me, gone." I wrapped my arms around my kind, diligent son, so undeserving of this cruelty. "We'll figure this out," I promised. But inside, my blood boiled. That money was meant to give Eli a chance at a better life. And Selena had snatched that dream away without a second thought. When Marcus arrived, he broke down at the violation of our home and Eli's loss. I rarely saw my soft-spoken husband enraged, but today his fury mirrored my own. Our savings drained, our locks picked, our son senselessly tormented. Enough was enough. Selena had to face consequences before she destroyed more innocent lives. The next evening, ignoring Marcus's warnings, I drove to the rundown motel where Selena was rumored to be staying. Sure enough, I spotted her beat-up hatchback out front. I banged on her door until she finally opened it, smirking when she saw me. "Well, if it isn't St. Lena, come to preach about morality?" I slapped her across the face. "You absolute monster," I spat. "Wasn't ruining our lives once enough for you?" Selena's grin vanished. "You'll regret that, Butch," she hissed, lunging toward me. We scuffled briefly before I shoved her back inside, slamming the door in her contorted face. I strode away, trembling but resolute. One way or another, Selena's reign of terror ended today. I had given her every chance to change. But some people rotted from the inside out, beyond hope of redemption. Dragging them from the darkness risked them pulling you down into their depths. Selena had proven herself a soulless parasite, incapable of goodness. Now it was time to excise her from our lives for good, before her fangs struck again. In the weeks after my confrontation with Selena, I waited on edge for her retaliation. Marcus increased security around our home. I pulled Eli from school, not wanting him alone until Selena was apprehended. But as days passed with no sign of her, we began to breathe easier. Maybe she had realized her crimes would catch up with her if she stayed in town. Then, late one night, I awoke to blaring fire alarms. Marcus and I rushed to Eli's room and found it filled with smoke, flames licking up one wall. We grabbed Eli and raced outside, moments before the fire engulfed his bedroom. As firefighters extinguished the blaze, suspicion gnawed at me. This was no electrical mishap. Selena had made her final, desperate play for revenge. The police investigation confirmed my fears. Traces of gasoline had been splashed along one side of the house and ignited. A disturbing amount, enough to incinerate us as we slept if the timing had been slightly off. Marcus's face was haggard as he spoke to the investigators. "My daughter Selena Rogers is your arson suspect. We have evidence she committed identity theft and burglary against us. This fire was her latest attempt to harm my family." With the troubling revelations about Selena's escalating crimes, the police finally took serious action. They obtained security footage from nearby cameras, showing a figure in Selena's car fleeing the neighborhood right before firefighters arrived. Arrest warrants were issued. Selena's name and photo were distributed to local media, labeling her an armed and dangerous fugitive. Marcus even made a direct plea for Selena to turn herself in, promising she'd still receive due process. But Selena remained in hiding, our lives frozen in limbo as we waited for the snake to strike again. I stayed locked indoors with Eli, rifles and fire extinguishers within reach. She'd taken so much from us already. I refused to let her steal our sanity, too. Then late one evening, I got an unexpected call from the lead detective on our case, his voice urgent. "You need to check the news right away. Selena Rogers was just apprehended." I grabbed Marcus and Eli, and we turned on the TV with trembling hands. A breaking news report showed Selena in handcuffs outside a pawn shop, stolen jewelry and electronics scattered at her feet. The very items she'd looted from our home. She cursed and spat at reporters as police stuffed her in a squad car. Selena had grown so convinced of her own invincibility that she'd slipped up and gotten caught red-handed. As the reporters recounted Selena's shocking crimes against her own family, her reputation lay in tatters, the real monster exposed underneath the pretty surface. I almost pitied her. Almost. That night, with Selena in a cell and our home protected, we finally slept in peace. The next weeks would be difficult, untangling the wreckage Selena left behind. But the storm had passed. Her lies could haunt us no more. A new dawn had broken, full of promise and hope. In the weeks after Selena's arrest, we slowly regained a sense of normalcy. With Selena locked up on multiple felony charges, the dark cloud that had choked our home finally lifted. I took Eli out for belated birthday celebrations at his favorite restaurants. Marcus and I spent evenings reminiscing about happier times before Selena's arrival. We started making plans to repair the fire damage and replenish our drained finances. There were still court dates looming. Marcus agonized over having to testify against his eldest daughter, no matter how estranged they'd become. I tried to steel my heart, reminding myself of all the suffering Selena had inflicted. Then we received shocking news. While in jail awaiting her trial, Selena had gotten into a violent fight with another inmate. The details were murky, but the results were clear. Selena was dead. Marcus took the news hardest of all. He locked himself in our room for days, torn apart with guilt. I focused my energy on comforting Eli, who despite everything felt saddened at the loss of a sister he'd never known. In the weeks that followed, we learned more disturbing details about Selena's final days. The inmate she'd clashed with claimed Selena had bragged about the rush she got from deceiving people, saying she wished she'd stolen triple the amount from us. Hearing Selena's callous words helped harden my heart. She'd felt no remorse for destroying lives. In the end, her greed and aggression had collided with someone equally vicious. With Selena gone, the case against her unraveled quickly. The bank rescinded her bogus loan applications, removing that crushing debt burden. The police helped retrieve some of our stolen funds from her apartment and storage unit. At the same time, sympathies poured in from our community, people horrified at Selena's behavior once her crimes became public. Many had known Marcus and I as a loving couple and parents for over a decade. They rallied around us, raising money to help Eli pay his college tuition. Their generosity stunned me. After writhing in Selena's web of isolation and deceit, the support of true friends felt like waking up from a nightmare. I saw it dawn on Marcus, too. We were not alone. Good people could conquer evil together. On the anniversary of Selena's death, we visited her grave for the first and only time. Marcus knelt by the modest stone and whispered a prayer. I stood back with Eli, giving them space. "She wasn't born bad," Eli said quietly. "Do you think if she'd made different choices, she could have been happy?" I hugged my wise son close. I think we all forge our own path. Selena chose destruction, but life marches on. Now we walk in the light again. Marcus joined us, finally looking at peace. He took my hand, a gentle smile on his face. "Thank you for staying by my side," he said. "Your love guided me out of the darkness." Together, we turned and walked into the sunset, leaving Selena's tempestuous ghost behind. The future awaited, bright and full of hope. In the months after Selena's death, our family slowly healed. The fire damage was repaired, stolen money recovered, debts settled. Bit by bit, we reclaimed what Selena had tried destroying. But some wounds aren't visible. I woke choking from nightmares of flames engulfing our home. Marcus withdrew into himself for days at a time, brooding with guilt, and Eli became quieter, jumping at small noises and keeping his bedroom door locked. So I suggested we start seeing a family counselor. At first, Marcus resisted, ashamed at needing help, but eventually he agreed it was necessary to fully mend our battered spirits. Our sessions proved intensely cathartic. We spoke of betrayal, violation, anger. The counselor taught us coping techniques for anxiety and PTSD. He urged us to vocalize our feelings rather than bottling them up, which had strained my relationship with the brooding Marcus. I discovered depths of pain in Marcus I'd never realized. He admitted part of his desperation to help Selena stemmed from regret over his failures with her as a child during his divorce. The counselor eased his shame, reframing his efforts as misguided rather than malicious. For Eli, the greatest solace came from restoring normal routines. He rejoined school sports teams, volunteered at a homeless shelter, and took a part-time job at an ice cream parlor. Focusing on productivity and community engagement helped alleviate his sense of helplessness. 6 months later, with our counselor's approval, we decided to close the book on our tribulations with Selena. We used the last of her recovered stolen money to take a family trip to Hawaii, visiting breathtaking beaches and eating decadent dinners. No friction, no drama, just joyful quality time together. On the final night, Marcus and I renewed our vows on the beach under a sunset, Eli proudly officiating. I gazed lovingly at my 2 men, my champions. Selena had tried tearing us apart. Instead, we'd emerged stronger than ever. Not all scars fully disappear, but you can choose to wear them proudly, refusing to let past pain define you. Our family embodied that resilience. On the plane ride home, I penned a journal entry I later shared with Marcus and Eli. The past year contained agonizing trials, but also profound growth. We cling closer now, wounds healed into wisdom. Selena acted as a wicked knife, slicing open old injuries and inflicting new ones. But we 3 are the stitching, holding fast, binding up the cuts, making whole what was rent. Our imperfect family will not just survive, but thrive. The darkness recedes, healing dawns, and the light everlasting remains. Later that week, I tucked my journal away in a keepsake box. The final remnants of Selena's ruination, trial transcripts, bank statements, police reports, went into the trash for good. Marcus hugged me close. "It's finally over," he said. "Now we build something beautiful from the ashes." I smiled up at my husband, then pulled Eli into our embrace. The storm had passed, our lives stretched ahead, sunny and bright, and we would walk this new path arm in arm, faces tilted toward the light. Really, Lila, still playing the martyr? Or just waiting to cash in on sympathy? Derek's mocking tone cut through the bustle of the crowded cafe, turning heads at nearby tables. I took a slow, steadying breath, willing my hands not to tremble as I set down my coffee cup. After walking out 5 years ago, leaving me struggling alone with 2 teenagers, Derek waltzed back into my life as though no time had passed. Seeing him smiling smugly, I wanted to scream, to throw my scalding coffee in his face. Instead, I met his gaze and gave a thin smile. Still as charming as ever, I see. Ava and Ethan weren't here to restrain me this time. My daughter would have placed a gentle hand on my arm, while my son glared daggers at his father. I couldn't afford to make a scene. The owner knew me as a regular, not an unstable drama queen. "Come on, Lila, no need to be so hostile." Derek slid into the seat across from me, oblivious to my tension. "I just wanted to see how you're getting on. It can't have been easy, raising 2 kids alone, but you always did love playing the victim." The audacity boiled my blood. I pictured my long nights working freelance design jobs, trying desperately to keep the power on as Derek traveled the world with his young girlfriend, but I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing my struggle. "Oh, finding work was tricky at first," I waved a hand breezily. "But you know me, I managed all right." "Managed, please. We both know you were left cash-strapped from the divorce." Derek raised an eyebrow. "But I suppose the kids helped you scrape by." The barb stung. Derek knew firsthand the sacrifices Ava and Ethan had made, giving up their college funds so we wouldn't lose the house. He just didn't care. I ground my teeth, holding back a retort. Derek eyed me curiously. "You're looking almost well-rested. Found someone to bankroll you these days?" I let out a short, sharp laugh. If only he knew. Last week, I discovered my late mother-in-law had left half her estate to me in her will. She knew her son had abandoned his family. Her last act was ensuring I had the means to rebuild. Irony truly was delicious. "Oh, just a few freelance jobs here and there," I shrugged. letting Derek interpret things however he wished. His eyes narrowed, clearly unhappy with my vague response. I felt a spark of satisfaction. After everything he'd put me through, keeping him guessing was the least I could do. Where was that slimy new girlfriend of his anyway? "You can drop the act, Lila," Derek snapped. "We both know you don't have 2 nickels to rub together." I raised an eyebrow. Careful with those assumptions. Things change. Derek stared at me, frustration etched on his face. I let the silence hang between us. Finally, he leaned back, an oily smile on his face. "Well, I'm glad one of us managed to turn things around after, everything." He made a vague gesture with his hand, as if our split had been some impersonal corporate downsizing and not his conscious choice to walk out. "Anyway, I should get going. Maybe we can all catch up sometime soon?" "Sure, Derek." I kept my tone neutral. "We'll be in touch." As he walked out the door, I allowed myself a triumphant smile. Derek could keep guessing about my little windfall, at least for now. I had plans for that money. Plans I'd been crafting since the day he left me standing numbly in the rubble of our old life. The time had come for Derek to learn exactly what I was capable of. I could still picture the lawyer's stunned face when I walked into his plush office last week. "Mrs. West, please have a seat." I perched on the edge of the leather chair, clutching my purse. After Derek left, I'd gotten used to waiting in dingy government offices, hoping for assistance. This place felt different. The lawyer fiddled with a file on his polished desk before meeting my eyes. "I apologize for the surprise visit, Mrs. West. I'm sure you're wondering why I asked you here today." I nodded mutely. "Well, I handled the estate of Derek's late mother, Betty West, and she left specific instructions that you were to be informed once the estate was settled." Shock rooted me in place. Derek's mother and I had always been close, despite her son's flaws. She'd even subtly supported me leaving Derek in the end. Not that I could afford a divorce lawyer on my tiny income, but I never imagined. Instructions regarding what, exactly? My voice sounded hoarse to my ears. "Mrs. West left you a sizable portion of her estate, Mrs. Lila, half to be precise." The room spun. Derek's mother had virtually cut out her only son, instead providing for me and her abandoned grandchildren. Tears burned in my eyes. After everything she'd witnessed of Derek's behavior, she passed her final judgment through this gesture. "This is unbelievable," I whispered. "It must be some mistake." "No mistake," the lawyer assured me. He slid a paper across the slick desk. As I scanned the legal document, disbelief gave way to a fiery satisfaction. With these funds, I could provide my children the stable home Derek had yanked away. More importantly, Betty had unknowingly armed me with the means to finally teach my selfish ex a lesson. I raised my eyes to the lawyer's expectant face. "Please convey my deepest thanks to Mrs. West. I don't know how to repay this gesture." He nodded. "Your resilience and strength of character is repayment enough, Mrs. West. Betty always said you held the family together." I managed a shaky smile, the beginnings of a plan already churning in my mind. Derek had no clue what was coming for him. Now, nearly a week later, I still grin thinking of Derek's pompous swagger. He has no idea the ammunition his own mother provided against him from beyond the grave. Pulling into the driveway, I spot Ava trailing slowly behind her brother towards the house. Weighed down by their overflowing backpacks, I hurry over to help lighten their load. "Rough first week?" "The usual," mutters Ethan, averting his eyes. I don't press him for details. The move to a new school had already been hard enough without his father's sudden reappearance. Ava offers me a wan smile. "I'm all right, Mom. Class is going fine so far." My brave, empathetic girl. I pull her into a quick hug before urging them towards the house. No need to delay sharing my news. Their stunned faces and exclamations of disbelief draw the first carefree laughter from me in ages. Soon, I vow silently, soon we'll give your father exactly what he deserves. "Mom, is all this really necessary?" Ethan's brows knit together as I lay out brochures on the dining table. "Completely necessary," I confirm, lining them up neatly. "You both deserve a chance to pursue your dreams. Now we can actually afford that chance." Ava traces her finger down glossy pamphlets showcasing art schools and design programs. A faraway look crosses her face, one I recognize from the early days with her father, before practicalities like cost came crushing in. We know you and Dad struggled to save anything for college, she says softly. You sure you want to spend this money on us? I gently grasp her hand. Ava, sweetie, you and your brother will always be my first priority. My only regret is not having enough to provide this sooner. Before they can argue, I stand briskly. Now, time for phase 2. I can feel their curious stares on my back as I boot up the old laptop. We'd made do with sluggish devices and spotty internet since the divorce, but the website I pull up now looks sharp and professional. Lila Gray Designs. Understated, refined. Subtly upscale. What's all this, Mom? Ethan leans over my shoulder. Just a little business I'm starting. I add breezily, freelance work takes me so far, but with an influx of capital. I let the implication hang with a knowing look. Ethan whistles under his breath. Damn, Graham's really set you up well. The distinct sound of a new notification grabs our attention. Ah, there we are. I turn the screen to show an appointment confirmation from a wealthy client in the next town over. Mrs. Vanderhorn here wants to fully redecorate her home, and Lila Gray Designs fits her aesthetic perfectly. Their delighted laughter draws my first genuine grin in ages. Let Derek get wind of my little venture, and the lies I carefully crafted to shield it. His ego won't tolerate being left out of the loop for long. Like clockwork, Derek shows up the following Saturday while the kids are out, casually mentioning spotting my stylish new business featured in an online advertisement. Oh, just a little side project. I wave him off breezily. Helps bring in some pocket money for extras. His poorly veiled curiosity brings a vindictive spark of satisfaction. I must say, Lila, I'm impressed. Turning things around so quickly, not exactly what I expected from you. The thinly veiled barb slides off as I offer an unaffected shrug. What can I say? I discovered some new motivation. Let him make of that what he will. Derek lingers awkwardly on the doorstep before clearing his throat. Well, I'll let you get back to it, but, let me know if you or the kids need anything. Trailing off, he heads back to his flashy car, envy evident in every step. I gently close the door, triumph surging in my chest. My solicitous ex would likely be turning up more frequently now, trying to ascertain exactly where my new income stems from. Little does he know the means of his downfall have already been set in motion. Soon, my well-crafted trap will snap shut around him, and Derek will finally understand exactly what I'm capable of when backed into a corner. The playing field between us is about to be leveled permanently. I knew it was only a matter of time before Derek showed up again. Still, hearing the unexpected knock at my front door makes my pulse spike with anger. I wipe damp hands on a dish towel before striding over. Derek's smiling face fills the doorway, his gaze already wandering past me to scope out any changes. Lila, good to see you again. His too bright tone sets my teeth on edge. Just thought I'd check in, see how you and the kids are settling into your new routine. I block his view with my body. Oh, we're all doing great, staying busy, you know. Yeah, I'll bet. Derek attempts to peer over my shoulder. This house looks more polished than I remember. Business must be booming these days. I fold my arms across my chest. Did you want something, Derek? His smile slips slightly at my cool tone. Good. The less at home he feels here, the better. Come on, Lila, no need to be rude. I know the divorce was hard, but we were married a long time. He adopts a reasonable tone. Don't you think it's in the kids' best interest if we get along? The audacity sends hot rage spiraling through me. This pompous jerk didn't give a damn about his children's well-being when he abandoned us. Now he wants to play caring father to worm his way back into our lives? Over my dead body. I inhale slowly. I'm sure the kids appreciate your concern, but we've adjusted well. Anything else? Derek shoves his hands in his pockets, glancing longingly past me. You, never mentioned where this extra income came from. New boyfriend I should know about? There it is. I suppress a sharp smile. You forfeited the right to details about my personal life years ago. My business is just that, mine. Frustration flashes across Derek's face at my evasion. Too bad. He'll have to work a lot harder if he wants back inside, and I intend to slam the door on him when he least expects it. Right, well, I'm happy things are going well for you all. The forced smile is back. Will I see you and the kids at my mother's memorial service next month? We should all catch up properly there. I nod briskly. Oh yes, we'll be catching up, and airing every miserable secret Derek hoped to keep buried. My mind is already churning with ideas when I firmly shut the door on his retreating back. The time has nearly come to pull the trigger on my plan. After years of anguish, Derek will finally face the karmic retribution he deserves. I scan the solemn faces gathered in the church reception hall after Betty West's memorial service, searching for my children. Groups of Derek's family and friends murmur in clusters, casting the occasional curious glance my way. I spot Ava and Ethan speaking quietly near a memorial wreath decorated with Betty's picture. As I approach, Ethan shoots a glare across the room. I follow his gaze to find Derek holding court with his brothers, accepting condolences with a somber expression. Rage simmers in my gut at his callous performance. Derek couldn't be bothered to visit his ailing mother more than once or twice a year. But now he milks the grieving son routine for all it's worth. I plan to let Derek slowly self-destruct, his boundless ego never realizing my orchestrations. But this farce is the last straw. Squaring my shoulders, I cross the room to confront the ring of West brothers. Their conversation cuts off abruptly at my presence. "Lila." Derek breaks the sudden silence with a cordial nod. "Thanks for coming today and for bringing the kids." I ignore his empty pleasantries, fixing him with an icy stare. "I think your brothers should hear exactly why their mother revised her final wishes. Don't you, Derek?" He pales slightly, eyes darting around. "I'm not sure I know what you mean." "Oh, I think you do." My sharp tone silences the muttered questions surrounding us. I have the rapt focus of every West family member now. Perfect. "You see, Betty left a sizable portion of her estate directly to me, not her only son." I keep my gaze locked on Derek's rapidly reddening face. "She knew exactly the kind of man you turned out to be, how you abandoned your family without a second thought or a cent of support." I relentlessly continue over murmured exclamations from his relatives. "You couldn't be bothered to lift a finger when emergency bills piled up or college funds disappeared overnight. You left 2 teenagers fatherless without once looking back." Years of pain and rage keep my tone lethal and steady. "Your mother saw it all happen under her own roof. Her final act was ensuring your children were provided for without their father's help." My words land like physical blows. Derek's mouth hangs stupidly as he grasps for a response. For over 5 years I dreamed of finally wiping that entitled look off his face. I lean in to deliver the final twist of the knife. "You'll be proud to know her money is already providing a bright future for your children, one you didn't see fit to give them yourself." A deafening silence engulfs us as I finish speaking. The truth Betty recognized too late in her son now dawns on every West relation. Red-faced, Derek turns and stalks toward the exit under the weight of their shocked judgment. I came here intending to orchestrate Derek's downfall myself. Instead, Betty ensured he already dug his own grave. Now I'm simply kicking the dirt over him, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. I knew it was only a matter of time before Derek's wounded pride drove him to retaliate. Still, opening my mailbox to find a legal notice summoning me to court makes my hands tremble in anger. Skimming through arrogant legal jargon, the gist becomes stomach-turningly clear. Derek aims to contest his mother's will and claim a portion of my inheritance for himself. Alleging, too, that I turned his family against him at the memorial through deception and lies. Red clouds my vision. The last vestiges of self-control shred away, and I storm inside to call the only lawyer I can afford. Her office may be tiny and cramped, but I pray she possesses the grit needed to face Derek's relentless attorneys. "He doesn't have a legal leg to stand on, Mrs. West," she asserts during our first strategy session. "Judges frown upon these kinds of greedy claims, especially against bereaved spouses and children." I nod, clinging to this lifeline. The inheritance represents my only means of keeping Derek firmly out of our lives. I cannot risk surrendering even a portion of it now. Not when my children are still so vulnerable. As I helplessly watch the court date approach, my outrage toward Derek swells to consuming proportions. The settlement was never about the money itself for me, but the security it offered my family. Security Derek hadn't bothered providing when he had the chance. Now he endeavors to steal even that shred of stability away, like some caricature of a deadbeat dad from a cheap drama. Well, it's time his loved ones recognize Derek for the monster he truly is behind the flashy surface. If I can ensure everyone's eyes are opened in that courtroom, Then maybe, finally, he'll slink away for good this time. My chance for closure arrives on a brisk November morning. I dress with meticulous precision. Derek may have the high-priced lawyers today, but appearances still count when reputations are at stake. The hearing itself proceeds agonizingly slow, each minute crawling past as Derek's attorney argues greedy platitudes. I cling white-knuckled to my chair, twitching at every embellished reference to my client's grief at his mother's tragic early passing. Finally, the judge calls me as a witness to illuminate Betty West's intentions in her will revisions. I recount my close bond with the West matriarch in concise, dispassionate detail before concluding, "Your Honor, the only desire motivating this petition is my ex-husband's resentment and pride at being cut off by his own mother." I turned slightly to meet Derek's reddening face. Mrs. West acted decisively to provide for her son's family after witnessing years of callous neglect firsthand. I urge you to recognize her judgment by upholding her wishes. My words reverberate through the suddenly silent room. Out of the corner of my eye, I spot Derek's brothers shifting uncomfortably as the ugly truth repeats back at them. Let Derek try worming into their good graces again after today. When the gavel finally drops, dismissing his claim, the sound echoes with sweet finality. I float from the courtroom, sea-scathed but triumphant, Derek's howls of outrage music to my ears. My counterattack succeeded even beyond my hopes. Now to press the advantage while Derek regroups and secure my family's independence for good. The courtroom doors had barely closed behind me when my phone began buzzing incessantly with calls. Derek's brothers and cousins all suddenly wanted the real story on their family rift straight from the source. I blocked every last one of them with vicious satisfaction. Let Derek try convincing his relatives of his virtue now, after I aired his dirty laundry so publicly. Even his polished lawyer persona can't erase the image of deadbeat dad I painted. In the wake of the hearing, blissful silence descended from Derek's direction, but I knew better than to believe I'd seen the last of him yet. A narcissist like Derek couldn't tolerate being so humiliated, even by his own mother. Sure enough, just days later, my cell phone lit up with his number. I tapped ignore with a smirk. Derek leaving pleading voicemails was a sweet bonus, but I had a far more interesting call to take. My lawyer wore a delighted grin when I answered. "Well, Mrs. West, acquiring that financial affidavit on your ex paid off nicely. I just spoke with my contacts, and it seems Derek's assets are mostly tied up in flashy new cars in his luxury apartment. But with that new girlfriend of his being a kept woman, his monthly balances are razor thin." I pictured Derek spinning lies to preserve his wealthy image while desperately financing his lavish lifestyle on credit. It lined up perfectly with his greed for my inheritance. Nothing stroked that fragile ego like other people's money. Well, no more. I couldn't wipe the savage grin from my face as I thanked my lawyer profusely. When I hung up, another notification flashed insistently. A bank transfer into my account for a significant sum. My breath caught as I scanned the description. Anonymous donation earmarked for a local charity supporting single-parent families left destitute by divorce. It seemed one of Derek's brothers decided to preemptively smooth relations after that disastrous court hearing, and the sizable amount now presented the perfect avenue for cementing Derek's downfall. I arrived early on donation day, ensuring I snagged a position right up front as the news cameras started rolling. As the charity representatives stepped up to the microphone for brief remarks, I tuned out their speech, fixing my gaze on the text flying between local reporters in front of me. News really did travel fast in our small town. Right on cue, the director wrapped up her comments by accepting an anonymous $50,000 donation in honor of Derek West's inspiring philanthropy. I relished the comical double-take from the reporters as camera shutters started clicking wildly. Derek's name was about to grace every small-town newspaper and website, indelibly tied to abandoning needy families. I maintained a humble, emotional expression as congratulations poured in, emphasizing my selfless desire to support other struggling single parents. But internally, I was crowing at the comprehensive obliteration of Derek's social standing I just engineered. Let's see how that leggy new girlfriend of his handles becoming involved with such a notorious deadbeat dad. Or how many of Derek's old country club peers will still return his calls once this all circulates. Checkmate. No doubt Derek will keep fighting to save his precious image. But the beauty of social media information is it can never be entirely erased. Every past business connection will have this scandal lurking in the back of their minds now, thanks to me. Karmic retribution indeed, and I'm just getting started. In the weeks following the charity stunt, I waited with bated breath for Derek's reaction, anticipating rage. But as days slipped past with no expensive cars roaring up or shrill calls harassment, an unsettling question took root. Could Derek finally be giving up? The lack of retaliation was somehow anticlimactic after years envisioning this downfall. I knew I secured total social and family exile for Derek. His girlfriend likely dumped him after that mortifying deadbeat daddy designation went public. By all measures, I triumphed. So why this lingering restlessness in my gut? No doubt Derek was off unsuccessfully pleading his case to old money connections who now avoided his calls. Time to refocus on what truly matters, my children, finally thriving free of their father's toxicity. As I review acceptances rolling in daily from prestigious art and journalism programs, I allow myself a small satisfied smile. Betty would be so proud seeing these opportunities her sacrifice created for her grandkids, and I vow to cherish our newfound security and leave thoughts of Derek's future troubles behind me. Until late one Friday afternoon when an unexpected visitor showed up looking properly chastised. I opened the front door to find Derek shifting awkwardly on the step, unable to meet my gaze. Up close, the changes in him stood out. Rumpled clothes, slumped shoulders, hair peppered with more gray than I remembered, he looked like a disgraced CEO after a messy board ouster. I folded my arms, waiting. After a long pause, Derek cleared his throat, eyes on his shoes. I guess I deserve the cold welcome. You have every right to slam the door in my face. He finally raised his head, remorse creasing his face. What I did, the court case, the threats, all of it. I don't have any defense. Just wanted to tell you I'm sorry, Lila. Truly sorry. Now it was my turn to avoid eye contact as I processed the sincerity in Derek's broken tone. A year ago, I would have given anything to wring this apology from my smug ex-husband. Hearing it now just drudged up the whisper of doubt. Had I gone overboard orchestrating such utter destruction? I shook off that thought with effort. I appreciate you saying that, Derek, but words don't erase the years of pain. My voice remained gentle but firm. I've worked hard to build a stable life here. Derek closed his eyes as though steeling himself before responding quietly. You have every right to hate me. I won't bother you again once I sign the divorce papers. My head jerked up as he shoved a document through the door. There on the top line, Derek signed away his legal right to meager spousal support, should my design business someday take off. I stared searchingly at this version of Derek I never knew, a defeated, regretful man ready to let go of his spite and pride. I wordlessly stepped back, allowing Derek space to shuffle inside and close the door. Maybe there was a shred of hope for civility between us yet.